Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the MLA components you're going to be using in the career essay, namely short quotes, long quotes, summary, and paraphrase, kind of ratcheting up the MLA formatting for this essay a little bit compared to the first essay. Everything I'm going to talk about is right here under MLA lecture F17. Not the most thrilling thing if you want to read this instead of listen to the video, but it kind of lays it out and you can kind of go through it a little more slowly at your own pace. To see how the MLA formatting is working. But I'm going to go over a sample essay. That's also up here on the help resources. Detail's a little slow today. We're going to look at the sample research medical essay, and again, it's right there under help resources. I've already got it opened, so I can highlight and stuff. And again, MLA formatting, the important part is you want to make sure you're crediting your sources, and you want to make sure you're being accurate and precise with your sources, using them fairly, not putting words into people's mouths. For this essay, it's going to be the topic on the next essay after this career essay. But again, with any MLA essay, you want to start with the works cited page. It's just a listing of the sources you're using in your paper, and sometimes you got to look up how to do it. But kind of notice, basically, just for a basic book entry, you're doing starting with the writer's last name, comma, first name, and an initial if you have it. The title of the book should be italicized, the publisher, the year of publication. If you're using an article title, which most of you are probably going to be doing with this essay, probably a web page title, still, if you know the author's name, still start with the last name, comma, first name. Then the smaller unit, which is generally going to be the web page. Then the larger unit, which is the journal or the website name. If you have a last date updated, that's good to put up there, or when it was published, either way. But whatever information is required after that. With web addresses, I want that full web address so I can click on that web address and go straight to that article that you used. So make sure you do that. And every entry is a little bit different, but that's the basic pattern there, right? If you don't have a writer's name, you'll start with the article title or the web page title. Then here's this was a magazine, but it'd be the website title, whatever information you have after that. But the four things I want to go over are short quotes, summary, paraphrase, and long quotes. We kind of went over that once before, but right here is a good example of a long quote. Again, a short quote. For short quotes, it's 3 or fewer lines with MLA formatting. You use quote marks. You encase that short quote in quote marks, and you want to introduce the quote. You want to cite it. But quotes should be word for word. So a short quote, 3 or fewer lines, will be word for word inside those quote marks. So here, researchers Michael Castle, Dolores Thompson, and Matthew Nathan's report. You see the quote marks. Then she gives the quote word for word. Then you see the citation, that's the page number from that source. But in that citation, I should see the first word on the works cited page and the page number if you have one. You can also put the first word on the works cited page or the author's name in the introduction like this, whichever way you want to do it. And that's exactly what a short quote should look like. It's introduced, it's cited, it's in quote marks, and it's word for word. Long quotes should be blocked over. Here we see 2 long quotes back to back here almost. And you can tell they're long quotes because they're the only things that get blocked over like that. Again, long quotes should be word for word. If you make an addition or a change to a quote, you'll use the brackets like that. And you are required to use brackets for this career essay, right? So if you do need to change a quote, you can, but you want to show what you changed. So the brackets there show an addition or a change to a quote. These ellipses up here, the 3 dots, show she took something out of the quote. So use ellipses to show omission, brackets show addition or change, but otherwise that quote should be word for word straight from the source. And again, with long quotes, again, there are 4 or more lines, and you want to introduce them. There's a good introduction there. And then of course, you want to comment on them once you've given the quote. It should tell us why that quote's there. So long quotes are the ones that are tabbed over, right? Blocked over, sometimes they're called block quotes. And over here, you kind of see the explanation of what's going on there. For summary or paraphrase, summary is a little bit different. Summary is when you shorten or condense material in your own words and sentence structure. Excuse me. So you might have a long passage discussing something about your career, and you're like, man, I could say that in 2 or 3 sentences. Well, please do. Put it in your own words and sentence structure. Shorten that, condense it. It does require some interpretation, so make sure you're not misrepresenting what's being said in that article or the web page or whatever. But here's a good example of a summary. Dementia patients were often thought to be senile or crazy. They were confined to their houses, nursing homes, or even in mental hospitals. That might have been 2 pages of material that she was able to condense in 2 sentences. Good way to use a summary. But you also have to cite those summaries. And there you see the citation there, the first word on the works cited page. So if I go down to that works cited page, there better be a coping there. And this is why the works cited page is in alphabetical order. I can go straight down here to coping and see that source. And I can go to that page number and find that information. With the short quote, there's Michael Castle, Dolores Thompson, and the first, that long quote was cited using Alzheimer's disease, and there's that source there. So that's how, when you see those citations, that's telling you which source that information is coming from. So there's a short quote from that coping source. Here's looks like a summary from McNamara. And that's kind of how it works. For a paraphrase, paraphrases are generally a little bit longer. Here's a good example of a paraphrase. Generally, with a paraphrase, you don't want to leave out any of the main points that the writer's using. With a summary, you might, because you're shortening and condensing it. You're probably going to leave some stuff out. But with a paraphrase, you want to restate what the author said, but you want to use your own words and sentence structure. And that's not easy, because once you get the author's information inside your head, it's hard to get it out in your own words and sentence structure. A good example, if you're going to talk about brain surgery in an essay, a short quote's not going to cover entire surgery, right? A long quote might get very technical and might be, just maybe a little too much information, or might be in doctor speak, where I kind of write in the margins, I have no idea what's happening here. You just kind of copy and paste this out of a medical journal. You need to dummy it down for your audience. Summary, if you condense it, shorten it too much, you're going to be leaving a scalpel in someone's head. So you might use a paraphrase, which is, again, restating the entire passage in your own words and sentence structure without leaving out any main points. And a paraphrase is going to be long or as long or longer than the original. But here's a good example of a paraphrase, and they look the same as a summary, but they're a little bit generally a little bit longer. But in terms of formatting within your essay, they look the same. But you still want to cite it. And quite often you want to do some kind of signal phrase. Here she's starting a paragraph, and it's obvious she's getting into a source. But if it's not that obvious, you might start saying, according to one source, and give your summary or paraphrase there. But hopefully that kind of helps you see, and there's a good example of a signal phrase right there. According to a 2-year study, diabetes nearly doubled the danger. So there's probably a summary because it's fairly short. But again, when you kind of get into the difference between a summary and paraphrase, it's more your intention, right? This one's kind of long, so it's probably a paraphrase. But again, that's the 4 ways you use sources in your essay: a short quote, long quote, summary, or paraphrase, and those are the differences. And be sure to use this essay as kind of example. Notice the commentary on the side. It'll help you out. And if you go to that sample career essay, I should have just downloaded it here. Let me go and download it. Oh, there it is. It's not labeled like the medical essay, but it has the same components in there. And hopefully what you start learning to do is when you look at a sample essay and you see a passage like this, mechanical engineering provides the widest range of options for areas of specialization. This type of engineering focuses on the design, analysis, experimentation, and construction of mechanical and thermal systems. There's no quote marks around it, so that's probably going to be a summary or paraphrase there, right? Probably more of a summary. It's pretty short there. But that's why hopefully you're going to start being able to recognize those techniques and obviously start using those in your essay. And you can kind of go through, and whenever you see these citations, that's the student telling you that I'm getting this information from this particular source. So if we go to the works cited page, there better be a source that begins with mechanical, and there it is. Right there, coming from the UT catalog. It looks like. But kind of as you go through that sample essay, Here we're starting to see some discussion about the cost of going to UT. He wants to go to UT Knoxville. Actually, this student actually ended up going to Vanderbilt. So if you're reading this essay going like, wow, this is pretty good. Yeah, he was a pretty bright guy. Still is. He's still alive out there. Should be in the second year at Vanderbilt by now, I think. But there's a good example of a paraphrase. Good example of a long quote. He introduces it, gives a quote, taps it over, and then discusses the quote once he's done with that. Short quote will be in quote marks. Having trouble finding one as I'm scrolling here. Well, we can do a find. But short quotes, again, 3 or fewer lines will be encased in quote marks. And I should be able to find it by searching for a quote mark. I'll take a couple of tries. No. There it is. Students who accept will be faced with as much responsibility as SpaceX full-time engineers will be an integral part of the team, talking about externships. Using the brackets to show a change to that quote, but you see the quote marks there, which indicates it's a short quote taken directly from that source. And again, I should be able to go to the works citus page and see SpaceX, and there it is. I can go to that source and check to see if he quoted that word for word. Make sure you kind of notice the works citus page on this sample essay. Doing a good job formatting entries correctly. And again, most of these are not authored. They're web pages, which is fine as long as they're reliable and authoritative. But again, you're going to start with the web page title. Well, let's go here with the web page title, then the website, then the web address, and the date you accessed it if you want to give that. Particularly if the site's information is prone to being changed. But kind of notice that process. Author's name, last name, comma, first name if you have one. If you don't, go to the article title or the web page title, then the website, then the URL, and then the date you accessed it. And again, it's in alphabetical order, hanging indentation, a good-looking works citus page. One other thing to take note of, and I'm going to show you how to do this here in a second. You need to have a table with your academic plan. To do that, you want to go ahead and label it, table 1. Then you want to label the degree and the school you're going to get it from. Hopefully Northeast State, but maybe not everybody is. I don't know. And then list semester by semester in the classes you're going to take and order you're going to take them. UT had it all laid out for him. He was a dual enrollment student, so he hadn't really started college. But you'll notice he removed Comp 1, Comp 2, because that's what he took in dual enrollment. But I want those courses in the order you're going to take them, which I'm going to show you how to do that here in a separate video. But kind of notice, hopefully you start learning the terms. Again, you see these citations. That means he's using that source. There's another short quote there. But hopefully you start catching on there that, you got a short quote, 3 or fewer lines, word for word, long quote, 4 or more lines, word for word, and offset, summary, condensed in your own words and sentence structure, but still cited, and paraphrase, restating the main points in your own words and sentence structure, but you still got to cite that source. If you have questions, obviously you should be asking them. Once you send your draft to Ms. Shell and fix the errors that she notes, I'm going to have you send it to me so I can check your MLA formatting. So you're not on your own here. But if you have questions while you're working on the essay, be sure to let me know. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.